We're going to have a conversation with an old soldier right now. Well, I don't mean old. I mean former soldier. Major General Bob Scales. What am I doing? Former Commandant of the U.S. Army War College. Thanks for joining us, Major General, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
You have an article today in the Washington Post that, dare I say, will be clicked on quite a bit and passed around the halls of the Pentagon and, dare I say, 1600 Pennsylvania as well. The headline, the Pentagon's 9-brigade gamble on Iraq. I think when the American people see an analysis by someone like you, General Scales, about our current strategy in Iraq, and we see the word gamble in the headline, it causes us to be concerned. Explain this, please.
Well, the president has quite literally doubled down in order to go on the offensive. The 1,400 advisors that he first sent to Iraq were intended to stop the bleeding, to hold the enemy, to reach a culminating point, so he couldn't go any further. And so ISIS got all the way across Syria, down the Euphrates to the gates of Baghdad. Now, what this 9-brigade gamble are the 9 Iraqi brigades that will be trained by these American teams to take the offensive, to push ISIS back up the rat lines. Now, there are also 3 additional Peshmerga brigades. Of course, those are the brigades that belong to the Kurds. But we don't think they're going to be used in the offensive. They're merely going to be used to hold their own native territory. But it's going to be up to the Iraqis to go to places like Ramadi and Hit and Mosul and Al-Qaim and slowly but surely push back these horrible human beings to regain their territory, and then perhaps someday, well into the future, address the problems in Syria. But the first question is what happens in Iraq, and those 9 brigades, that 9-brigade gamble that I wrote about, those will be the forces that will start the ball rolling for this counteroffensive.
And your conclusion in this article, if I could just read it, is okay, look, if the 9 Iraqi brigades and the U.S. advisors can't do it, then the clock will keep ticking, and the president will have 2 options, and here they are. Number 1, accept the Islamic State Caliphate that occupies much of Iraq and Syria, or add more U.S. forces to the opposition.
And the American people want neither, and that's the issue. Because if this thing sputters to a halt and the Iraqis can't get it done, and ISIS stays where they are, what that essentially means is the president's got 2 unacceptable choices. He can just leave it alone and let there be an ISIS state, or he can go to real mission creep. I'm talking about serious numbers that might approach 10,000 Americans before the end of 2015.
General Scales, can you clear up some of the nomenclature here? Because up until Friday, we were told we were sending U.S. forces there to equip and to train. But then on Friday they added this word advisors. And I remember reading histories of the as you call it, mission creep, the slow, torturous buildup in Vietnam. And I remember reading that when advisors started to get into Vietnam, that's when the trouble began, because really an advisor means that they're, well, you tell me, does this mean that they're actually shoulder to shoulder with the Kurds and with the Iraqis?
I don't know. They tell me no, but every time we go down with an advisory group to a lower level, first we start at 2 big sort of national centers, then we go down, now we're down to brigades. Who knows? For this to work, we might have to move down to battalions. You know, you don't have to go too much closer down the chain of command until you get to the point where you have a rifle facing the rifle of another enemy on the other side of the road.
And knowing and seeing what ISIS is capable of, and the kind of money they have and the kind of equipment they have, there's no doubt that these troops are in harm's way.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. And the closer they get to the front line, the more harm they're in. So the president's decision to pick brigade as the point of contact, if that doesn't work, then the day, God forbid, may have to happen where our soldiers would be down to perhaps battalion. Who knows? Maybe company level. I certainly hope that doesn't happen. My generation have gone through that degree of mission creep in the early 60s. It didn't work in Vietnam, and I suspect it probably won't work any better in Iraq.
All right, so I have a couple of questions. Number one is the air campaign, is it going to have the desired effect? Can you bomb ISIS into submission?
Of course not. You can't do that. We've never been able to do that. It's very helpful, don't get me wrong. One of the reasons ISIS has culminated, that's a military phrase we use to get to the point where they can't go any further, is because of these minuscule airstrikes. But there's no volume, there's no mass. The intelligence is better, but these guys are hiding in the cities, very difficult to kill. And so if you don't have something on the ground to spot for those airplanes,
right,
then 5 or 6 missions a day isn't going to make much difference.
Are they using the A-10?
No.
They're not. Should they?
There's a point in this battle where 2 new airplanes are going to have to show up. One is the AH-64 Apache attack helicopter, and the other is the A-10. They don't use them because they fly low and slow, and the greatest fear that the U.S. command has right now, that some poor pilot is going to take a short-range missile and have to punch out over enemy territory. The nightmare is a captured soldier or pilot by ISIS, and what the global media is going to do with that.
Major General Bob Scales, before we leave here, we got to talk about Veterans Day today. Obviously, an important day on everybody's calendar. We're coming off the VA scandal that happened earlier this year, which continues actually, despite the change in leadership. Are we doing enough for our veterans? And if you were in charge of the VA, which wouldn't be a bad idea, what should we be doing more for our vets? Gosh,
there are two scars on our vets. One, you see, those are missing limbs, burn scars that we see on soldiers. You see them walking around the mall. But more important to me are the inner scars that are caused by traumatic brain injury and caused by PTSD. There are hundreds of thousands of soldiers like that because they were universally overused during the past 12 years of war. If you're going to demand, if you're going to take volunteers and demand that they be used in these environments, you have to pay back to these soldiers and Marines with literally lifelong care, because that's what it's going to take to return these young men and women to normalcy. It's not going to be a weekly visit and a couple of a couple of doses of aspirin.
And are you seeing that promise fulfilled at this time?
I'm sorry?
Are you seeing that promise fulfilled at this time?
No, I don't.
All right. Major General Bob Scales, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you for your service on this Veterans Day. Are you going to the concert tonight? What are you doing to say? I always wonder what.
I'm going to a veterans ball tonight with my good friend Jennifer Griffin. She's from Fox News. She is an absolute hero in soldier relief and taking care of veterans. I'll do anything to support her.
Have a great night, sir. You earned it, and more so. Thank you.